Welcome to Late Boomers. I'm Cathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. We're here for you, for people reinventing themselves in the second half of life, because it's never too late to create something meaningful, exciting, and new.
Whether you're changing careers, starting over, or simply asking what's next, this is your place.
Yeah, and Cathy, one thing we hear again and again from our listeners is that feeling of being in between.
Yes. Boomers today are living longer, healthier lives, but that also means more transitions. Retirement isn't what it used to be.
It sure isn't. But everyone, listen, it's not an ending, it's a pivot, and sometimes a confusing one.
Yeah, you built a life, a career, an identity, and suddenly you're asking, who am I now?
And that feeling and that question can feel very exciting or terrifying or both.
Which is why we're so happy to have today's guest who specializes in exactly this moment.
Yeah. Joining us today is Johanna Danaher, transition coach and founder of Anchor to Aspire.
Johanna, welcome to Late Boomers.
Thank you so much, Cathy and Mary. I'm thrilled to be here to have this conversation with the two of you today.
Thank you. We're thrilled to have you too.
Let's start here. Why are transitions, especially in midlife, so challenging for so many people?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things here, right? And, I look at my own transition when I left a corporate role and started my own entrepreneurship space. I didn't realize that I would have to grieve what I was leaving behind, right? And that was a really important aha moment for me, is that grief of really, what was I leaving? I was excited, I was terrified, but I also had a lot of sorrow and a lot of grief. And that was really what made it very difficult for me because I didn't allow myself the time to truly process that.
Yeah, I get that. I had the same issue when I left the job I'd been in for a couple of decades. So you talk about the difference between change and transition. Can you explain that for our listeners?
Yeah, sometimes the transition is often at choice, right? And so we're making a choice or someone else made a choice. There's this transition period that we're going through where we're stepping into something new. Change often is outside of our control. Transition is within our control and within our sphere of influence, right? It's actually a lot more active, right? Change can be like everything is changing around me. The job I loved is no longer a part of me. Maybe the career has ended because of a restructure. Maybe it has ended because you were retired sort of out of an organization. It's outside of your control. The transitions that we go through happen often, I'd like to say at choice. Sometimes they're not, but they are at choice. And when we fundamentally look at them, we are the ones who are in control of that transition versus this idea of change happening, to us. I also think transition, is a moment of re-identifying who you are. You don't necessarily change your identity when you're in the midst of a change, but when you're transitioning and you're making this fundamental pivot, there is an identity shift that happens with that as well. You're becoming and you're being someone new. So that's the fundamental difference.
Interesting.
That is a real good concept to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Many boomers feel stuck even when their life looks successful on paper. What's really going on there?
Because we've always been focusing in on another person's definition of success. So when life looks good on the paper, it's because it has the appearance of being good. And it's because someone defined that success for us. And often when we feel stuck, it's because our definition of success does not match what the society's accepted definition of success is, or our own definition has shifted and changed, and we haven't shifted or changed along with it.
Yeah, and there's so many definitions of what success is, even from the outside. You emphasize happiness not as a side effect, but as a strategy. What does that mean in real life?
So oftentimes we have this idea that if I do more, then I'll have more and I'll be happy, right? That's, as we all know, not true. It's happiness is a choice that we make every day. And happiness is something that we have to cultivate for ourselves, right? It's not a destination. It's the journey that we're on every single day. I have a sign behind me that says, if it's fun, do it often. And I have another sign on the other side of the wall that says, find joy in the journey, right? So happiness is something we choose. And we all have the capacity to choose happiness. Now, I don't mean choose happiness as this idea of toxic positivity or toxic happiness, right? But choosing happiness in our everyday, it could be a flower that you see. It could be the sun is feeling warm on your hands. It could be you're playing in the dirt. All of those things could just be simple moments of happiness and joy, and we can choose them for ourselves.
And I think
love
we have
that.
to be able to recognize them when they're happening, like in the present. That's I think a lot of us just aren't in that present moment. So we don't, somebody that loves gardening, like you mentioned, dirt, maybe they don't realize they're happy now. They're just doing it by rote. And maybe if they tune into that, they would feel happier, right?
Well,
I love that you say that, tuning in, right? Because it is that awareness. Sorry, Mary.
No, I was going to ask you how you first recognized that.
Oh, for me, it's interesting. So my father was a very happy individual and a very happy person. He had significant health issues and was chronically ill and actually passed away when he was 54 years old. But he was happy every single day of his life. And he was resilient and he was present. So his idea of a great day was to take the long way, whether it was a longer subway ride, whether it was the long route in the car, whether it was the country roads in Maine. And he did that on purpose because there was always something unexpected. There was always someone new that he could meet. And he taught me about this idea that happiness is something I cultivate and I create. So it's been a part of me, having watched him and having seen him live a very, very difficult, very painful disease for 10 years of his life. And he still was happy every day.
That's an amazing teacher, mentor. How old were you when he passed?
I was in my early 20s, like 23, 24. It was 30 years ago.
You didn't get very much. You didn't get very much time with him. Yeah.
No.
When someone's facing a major life shift, what's the first question they should ask themselves?
Well, I'm not sure it's this first question. The first thing that they should do is pause so they can have the space to ask themselves the questions that they need to ask. And I do think the first question, once we've created that space, is really that idea of what am I leaving behind, right? Let's really recognize that. What am I leaving? Because that's important to name, to normalize, to acknowledge. And then
and by that you mean like a legacy thing, like what am I leaving when I pass?
It could actually be what am I leaving behind in that previous role or that previous space. So not necessarily the legacy that I'm leaving forward, right? It's actually what am I leaving when I'm leaving whatever I'm transitioning from.
Even leaving memories.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then is there a first step that they ask themselves, like, what the heck did I do? Or hopefully not that.
Well, it's also the next is, well, what do I want to carry forward, right? So what are the things that energize me? Because a lot of the things that we're leaving behind, right, are the things that were depleting us. We may not have recognized that they were depleting us. We may not have acknowledged that they were depleting us, but we're leaving those things, or we should be leaving those things behind, right? So identifying then what is energizing, what is depleting, and what do I want more of? So those are the questions that fundamentally in any transition we should be asking ourselves.
And a lot of people won't even know.
Mm-mm.
So that's another area of discovery, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And well, what are some of the common limiting beliefs or fears that keep people from moving forward?
So the first one is it's actually the sort of I have to be busy, right? So
Aha.
busy is a socially acceptable
I
way
can
to
I
avoid
can
grief.
identify with that one.
And when we're busy, we avoid uncertainty, right? We avoid the silence where those identity questions actually live because we're busy, right? And for many of us who, have been high performers, whether it's in a corporate setting, whether it's as, the family matriarch, whether it's as a small business owner, right? We have equated our worth with our output. So what did we perform? What did we give to others, right? And a retirement transition can threaten that, right? When our whole identity is wound up in what did I produce? What did I do? What did I give to someone else? Then we either recreate a job without meaning, or we burn our energy trying to outrun that discomfort, or we just stay busy all the time because we don't know how to sit with that silence that we need sometimes in order to figure out what comes next.
Any pointers on sitting with silence?
Give yourself grace and challenge the story that comes up in your mind, because oftentimes when we're uncomfortable with something, we fill it with a story. Well, I should be doing something else. Others expect me to be doing this. I can't take this time for myself. I should be focusing on others and not myself. Really? Really? No.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, probably not. What I would say.
Yeah.
And you work with something called energy leadership.
Mhm.
How does our mindset affect the way we navigate change then?
So we navigate
What is that?
change. Yeah, so energy leadership is really all about the fact that there are, two types of energy that sort of, all of us resonate with. There's the energy that is, as I mentioned sort of briefly before, that's more catabolic. It's sort of destructive energy. It's the energy of stress, right? It's the energy that comes when cortisol is spiking. And there's reasons that we have that, right? It's helping us digest. It's helping our body sort of process things, but it's also holding us stuck in many ways. Then there's this more anabolic energy that is the energy of creation, right? It's the building up energy. And so energy leadership is really about understanding where you resonate. And there are 7 levels of energy, all the way from levels 1 and 2 being more catabolic and victim and anger, right? So they're sort of characterized by something's happening to me, I have no control, or I'm angry, I'm going to fight or flight, right? And then there's the higher levels of energy, which is where creation and opportunity and learning and growth and helping and collaboration come into play. And it's very hard to be creative when we're feeling in this sort of everything's happening to me and I have no choice. I'm reacting versus responding. So that's what energy leadership is all about. It's really understanding where you are on a good day. What is the natural you? And then what happens to you under stress? Because
So it's
under
something
stress,
you do on your own, but with yourself,
you
or
can
is
do
it
it.
something that people go to you for coaching, or is that something you do too?
Yeah, so I do offer an energy leadership index, right? It's a proprietary run by the IPEC organization that I am a coach through, and it allows you to see sort of what that energy
Mm.
resonance is.
Oh,
But you can also reflect on this yourself, right? So because awareness creates choice, right? So once we are aware of something and we understand and we can ask ourselves these questions about how am I showing up right now? What's my energy, right? Am I
hmm.
feeling like I don't have control? Then you take that pause and you say, well, actually, I do have control. So let me understand how am I feeling in this moment, and then you can access those sort of higher levels of energy.
Oh, right.
Definitely
Mm.
gives you
Yeah.
perspective.
I think you just answered a question I had, which is how can someone shift from this is happening to me, this mindset into something more empowering? And you have any other ideas on how to do it?
So I think the other one is also recognizing that when we have a strength, right? That strength could be for me. I'm definitely a helper, right? It's in my DNA. It's always been in my DNA. It's the job I did. It's who I am. It's my core fundamental value. That can easily become people pleasing, and
I
then
was going to say
very
that's
easily.
what it sounded like. Yeah.
Mhm. So helper can be very much about sort of servant leadership, right? Really enabling others to become their best selves. But if I don't then think about my own self care, then my needs are not met. I'm not meeting my needs. I'm not putting boundaries in place for myself. I then start to equate my worth with how people view me versus how I view me. So it's
And th-
also recognizing that.
and then can you really help others if you're not helping yourself?
You can't. And I heard this statement like two months ago. I was talking with a peer, and you say those old adage, right? Put your own oxygen mask on first, or you
Oh,
can't pour from an
Yeah.
empty cup. And they said to me, you can't pour from a filling cup either. You can only pour from the overflow.
Oh, that's
I was
good.
like, what? I had never heard that before. And I was like, you're absolutely so right. I have to not just fill my cup and not just, make sure, the cup isn't
hmm.
empty. It has to be overflowing,
So
and it
you
has to
have
be
much to
filled.
give.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
concept of more.
Mm,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Well, for
Yeah. Yeah.
people reinventing themselves after 50 or 60, how do they identify what's next?
So one of the things I do, and I had to do this with myself, was ground myself in my value system again. So I hadn't really thought about it in about 25 years. And my
Mhm.
values are still pretty much the same. However, how they are honored is quite different. And when I started to look at my values and really ask myself, what's next? It was very clear that what was next for me was not to go back into another corporate role. I had spent 25 years in corporate HR. It was clear that that was not the right decision for me. I needed, and my values were pointing me towards being much more focused in my community areas
Mm.
and being much more targeted one-on-one and working with people, and as opposed to large scale org changes, right? It was no, I have this mission, this passion, this purpose that's pointing me to work one-on-one. So that was for me so important, was really relooking at my value system to ensure that whatever I was going to do next aligned, because I was so depleted.
Mhm.
Mm. Well, talking about being depleted, excuse me, how does resilience play in what role does resilience play in transition? And also, is it something that we just have or can it be learned?
Some really good questions there, Mary. Resilience, I think, is fundamental to a transition, right? Resilience is, for me, it's all about the sort of learning mindset, a growth mindset, right? It's not letting fear hold you back. It's actually knowing that you're going to make a mistake, or maybe you can't possibly ever make a mistake because a mistake is just something we label after the fact. Right. So resiliency is, how do you pick yourself up after something doesn't go right? Right. And how do you find the lesson and the learning in that? And that's so fundamental.
Yeah, but also too, sometimes I know sometimes when I say you got to be resilient, got to be strong, you steel yourself, but you shut a door when you do that.
Yeah.
How do you keep the door open with that resilience and be able to actually incorporate it?
It's very much emotional awareness. Many of us, especially those of us in our 50s and our 60s, grew up with the knowledge and even the teaching that we'd have to check our emotions at the door, right? If we're emotional, we're overreacting, right?
And
Well,
that'll be women. That'll all be women.
Always, right? I can't tell you how many times I heard that you're being emotional. You have to be pragmatic, focus on the facts, make sure that the emotions stay at home where they belong. You're like, really? No. The emotion is part of who we are. And so we have to own the emotion. I actually have an emotions wheel, a sticker that's on my laptop, and it has just these different emotions, and it's high level, what am I feeling? Then what am I thinking? And then what's an action that I can take? And I look at that every day.
That's great.
Yeah.
So how am I feeling? How am I thinking? And what action can I take?
Yeah.
Good. I like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, you've talked about letting go of old identities. And how do you help people through that? How do they get rid of, like, if they're a people pleaser or something like that?
Yeah, so from like the people pleaser, for me, the simple thing that I have to ask myself is, what would please me, as opposed to what would please others? And so asking those two questions, right? So really understanding, how do I support myself? For someone who is someone who's so focused on I guess high standards, right? Many of us have high standards for ourselves and for others. And high standards can become self-criticism. So that's the other thing I work with my clients on, is really cultivating the inner coach as opposed to the inner critic, right? That's the key, is when we can actually talk to ourselves like we would talk to our best friend, that's where change can happen. That's where we can really lean in. And I also work on helping people reframe responsibility from, I can't disappoint anyone, to, I have responsibilities and I'm choosing how I'm going to show up in those moments. What are my boundaries? Because boundaries, we never set boundaries. I was never taught how to set a boundary growing up in my life. So now it's become a really core and complete component of who I am. What are my boundaries? What am I going to say yes to? Because everything I say yes to is a no to something else.
Yeah, but it's also such a common topic now, boundaries. And growing up, I never heard of that. Never once heard it. Mary, did you?
No, never.
Did anybody ever tell you anything of that in school or?
No, because we're women. We're supposed to be people pleasers, right?
But I think even my friends who went to therapy or anything, they never talked about it either. I think it's a newer type of concept that maybe psychiatrists and people didn't understand for a long time. I don't know. I'm just like kind of asking both of you.
Yeah. Johanna?
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not, a clinical psychologist by any means, so I'm not sure where it sort of started to come up. But you're right. It was never something that we heard in school or even in the workplace, and I talk about it. I have a daughter who's in college, and she is really clear on her boundaries. So I'm very happy that that conversation has changed in her life. However, we do have the opportunity to set boundaries for ourselves now, and it's okay to say, I don't have capacity for that today. When we think about energy is our capacity, right? We don't get any more time in the week. Right? That's not renewable.
We
but
try.
Our capacity is, we try. But capacity, our energy, that's renewable. And the only way we can renew that is if we set the right boundaries for ourselves.
That's a really, really important point. And yet, I know that Cathy and I are both, Cathy is an actress, I was, and in improv, you have to say yes to everything. It's not yes, but it's yes, and. So in my mind, it's okay, say yes to life, say yes to the life giving energy, and then move on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
also yes and in life too. Yes,
Yeah.
and what else can I do?
Yeah.
Yes, and what else can you do?
Exactly.
If you were helping someone else. That's
Yeah.
And I
amazing.
love that, right? Because it's such a perfect metaphor for what we're saying right now. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I need, yes, I am doing this with you, or yes, and this is what I need.
Yeah.
Right.
And there you set your boundaries and you don't have to say no because maybe that's what you find out what's next.
Yeah.
I think though the point is sometimes you do have to say no.
Oh yeah.
That is how you set a boundary.
To
I
our
think you
dogs
do have to say
especially.
no.
Our dogs especially.
All the time.
So Johanna, give us one practical step for our listeners, something they can take with them this week if they're standing at a crossroads.
So the thing that I would focus in on here is at a crossroad, sometimes there's fear. So normalize that fear. Fear isn't a sign that this is the wrong thing or the not the good thing, or reframe it, right? What is this trying to protect me from? What matters to me that I don't want to lose, right? And step into the pivot, the transformation, eyes wide open, right? That's the thing. It's like step into this greatness. Cathy, what you said, yes, and, right? Yes, and this transformation is going to transform me in
Right.
some way that I may not know yet. And that's okay. I don't need to be afraid of it. I need to use that fear as fuel.
Yeah.
And I think so often when people feel that fear, it comes out like anger. So a lot of times you'll talk to some, if people seem angry, they're actually quite afraid of what it is they're trying to step into or trying to do, or what they're afraid you're doing to them by telling them whatever you're saying.
And I love
Don't you
that you
find
brought
out?
that up.
Yeah. Okay. Talk about that a little.
So interestingly, I mentioned that energy leadership index. So have taken that 3 times. I took that about 4 months before I learned that my role was being eliminated, and I took it about 5 or 6 months after, and then I just recently took it. So it's been 3 times within like the last 18 months. And from the second time to right now, my response, my level 2 anger response under stress, went from a 16.2% of my response to a 6.2%.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And a
And
lot of that was fear.
ideally, it's the lower you can get it, right?
Yeah.
That we shouldn't be reacting with fear to everything, or actually with anger when we have fear.
Or
Yeah.
even
We kind of
reacting.
we need to recognize that that is fear. Just say, "Oh, I'm afraid of that," but not get so angry we're going to beat
Angry.
up something.
Yeah. And every level of energy has a point and a place, right? There's it's protecting us from something. Anger should be a signal that something matters sometimes. If someone is being threatened, attacked, or whatever, anger has a place, but it can't control the narrative, right? It can't be what just makes the decision, and you can't stay there. Right? If you stay there for so long, it becomes something that's really destroying you. So for me, I was staying there too much, and it was not healthy for me. And really what I learned was it was fear, and it was the fact that I was not honoring my own boundaries. And so once I started to really say, "Oh, I have this boundary, but I've let it slide," and once I had that difficult conversation with myself, all of a sudden things started to change, and my response really shifted dramatically.
Yeah.
Love that.
I do too.
Johanna, this has been incredibly helpful.
So
Thank you.
helpful. And especially for anyone feeling uncertain, you've really kind
Mhm.
of normalized that experience.
Where can people find you and learn more about your work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for asking. My website is called anchortoaspire.com, and you can
Mhm.
reach out and book a coffee connection with me right there on my website. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I share a lot of content, and I love getting into conversations with individuals. So please, follow me on LinkedIn. And if anything resonated in the conversation and you or your listeners are interested in exploring it more, I'm hosting small group experiences on a monthly basis. Very simple Zoom calls, just to really step outside of the daily grinds and get clearer on what's next. And you can find out more information on those webinars on my website as well.
Oh, that's
And
great.
that
And
and that they'd find under Anchor to Aspire.
Correct.
Aspire.
yeah,
Yes.
that's great. And to all of our listeners, this may be the beginning of your most exciting and authentic chapter yet.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Late Boomers and please share it with a friend.
Because it's never too late.
To be a late boomer.
That's right.